Hey all, hope you're doing great. Today we're going to be creating a basic network topology in Cisco Packet Tracer, and we're going to be looking at the classes that we use in that too. So the first thing that you're going to want to do is that you want to choose your routers for your topology. And this is where you get your routers, this first icon over here. And you can choose any router, but I prefer 2811. So let's go ahead and let's place three icons on the three routers on the screen. And then the next thing that we're going to do is that we are going to place some switches on the screen. And this is where you get your switches, the second icon over here. Once again, you can use any switch, but I prefer 2960. So let's give a switch to this router, and then let's give a switch to this router. Let's leave the third one as it is. What this means is that we have one network over here, and then another network over here, and a third one over here, and we're going to connect these. We're gonna we're gonna connect these networks using serial cables. Let's go ahead and go to the connections icon over here, and I'm going to show you how we're going to make these connections. Now, the way that you're going to connect a router to a switch is that you're going to use a copper straight through wire, just like that. Let's go ahead and connect this router as well. As you can see that every router has, by default, two Ethernet cables. And we just used up one of those Ethernet cables for both of these routers, which means that they both have just one Ethernet cable left now. Now, when you want to connect one router to another router, you don't use the copper straight through wire. You use a serial cable wire. However, none of these routers has by default any serial cable connections. And the way that we give that is that we click on the router, then we go to physical, where we can see that we have some modules and some interface cards. What we're going to do is that we're going to switch off the router first of all, and then we're going to choose the card WIC2T, which basically gives the respective router two serial cable connections, and then we turn the router back on. If we wanted another Ethernet cable connection, like if you wanted to connect three instead of just the default three routers or end devices, then we would use this WIC1ENET card, which means that right now we have three vacancies, so we could have three extra Ethernet cable connections. So now if you go ahead and click the serial cable and then click the router, you can see that we have two serial cable connections. However, before forming the connections, we have to do the same thing for the other two routers as well, obviously. And remember to switch it off and then turn it back on. Now that we've done that, we can safely connect these three routers, which means that we've basically connected the three networks in our topology. Next, what we're going to do is that we're going to choose this icon end devices, and we are going to place our end devices, which let's just choose laptops for now. We're going to place our laptop end devices in the networks. So one for this one for this, and then one for this. Let's go back to the connections icon. Now, when you have a switch in the middle layer between a laptop and a router, that means that the laptop or that the end device and the router are not on the same layer. And when they're not on the same layer, when there's a layer between them, then we use a copper straight through wire for the connection. So let's go ahead and connect these two laptops. Now, when we have the laptop or the end device on the same level as the router, we don't use the copper straight through wire, we use the copper crossover wire, since they're basically on the same level. Now, what we've done over here is that we have made a topology. However, if we wanted to send a message, this is where you select send messages from. If we wanted to send a message from this router to this laptop, it wouldn't work because we haven't really assigned any IPs to these devices, and we haven't even given the laptops any functional ports. So let's go ahead and do that. So for assigning IPs, we're going to be learning a little bit of theory right now. For assigning IPs, we have three basic classes that we use. We have A class. The class just means that we have a range of IPs in that. Then we have B class and C class. You also have D and E, but we're not going to go into that right now. A class has an IP range of 0 to 127, and B class has an IP range then of 128 to 191. And for C class, that goes from 192 to 223. So let's just use, say, A class for this topology. You can only use one class in one topology. So if you choose A class, then you're only going to use A class in the whole topology. If you use B class, you're only going to use B, and same is the case with C. So the way that you assign the IPs is you have a more complicated way and then the easier way. So I'm going to start with the slightly more complicated way. We're going to see which interface this network is connected with, and that is FA0/0. So we're going to click on the router. We're going to go to the CLI, the command line interface. We're going to go ahead and type in no. Press return. Then we're going to say enable. Once the router is enabled, we can start configuration. So we're going to say configure terminal. So now it's in configuration mode. Now we're going to want to type in this interface. So we're going to say interface FA0/0. Once we're configuring within that interface, now we're going to be assigning an IP address to this interface. So we're going to say IP address, and let's give this, let's just give it, because as you can see that 0 to 127 is the range for A class. So let's go ahead and give it a simple 1.1.1.1. And then what we do is we don't press enter, we then give the subnet mask of the respective class. So for A class, our subnet mask is 255.0.0.0. For B class, you put 255.255.0.0, and in the case of C class, you have 3 255s. So you press enter, and then you just write no shut or no shutdown, and you can see that this connection just turned green. What we're going to want to do now is that although we have assigned an IP address to this network, a default gateway IP address, but we haven't given an IP address to this laptop. So we're going to click on the laptop or click on the end device. We're going to go to desktop, to IP configuration, and the default gateway that we gave is 1.1.1.1. Let's just go ahead and copy that. And you can see that the subnet mask is, let's give this the IP address because it can't be same as the default gateway. So let's give this laptop the IP address 1.1.1.2. And then the subnet mask gets written in automatically. So let's cross that. Then let's go over to this connection, and I'm going to show you, wait, no, let's still do the same method on this one too. So we're going to say no, enter, enable. Then you can just say config T instead of the whole configure terminal. You can say int FA0/0 instead of writing the whole interface. And then IP add. Let's give this one 2.1.1.1. And then the subnet mask. And no shut. Okay, then let's go ahead and do the same with this laptop. Go to desktop, go to IP configuration 2.1.1.2. Let's go ahead and copy this and put this in the default gateway 2.1.1.1. And let's do it for the third laptop too, but this time let's try and use the slightly easier method. So you click the router, instead of going to CLI, you go to config. And over here, you select the interface that you want. So we want fast Ethernet 0/0. And we're just gonna give it the IP address that we want. So let's do 3.1.1.1. And then the subnet mask is obviously going to automatically fill in. Then do the same with this laptop. So 3.1.1.2 and over here as well. 1.1.1. You can see that this is still not turned green. So I think if we press this fast forward time, it should work. Okay, if it doesn't, then what you do is that you just go to that laptop and you can just say no shut, sorry, that router, and say no shut. And it should, yeah, it's turned green. So right now what we've done is we've assigned IP addresses, and let's go ahead and write our IP addresses. Let's just give the labels so that it's easier. You saw where I selected the label, this yellow sticky note over here. Okay. Now what I need to do is I need to give IP addresses to these cables as well, to these connections as well. So let's use the easy way for this. So this is SE0/3/0. I'm going to give this 4.1.1.1, and let's also go ahead and copy that. And let's write no shut. As you can see, it's not turned green yet because we need to do the same from this side as well. So this side is also SE0/3/0. And we're going to give this a little bit different IP. So instead of 4.1.1.1, we're going to do 4.1.1.2. And then we are going to do no shut and see it's turned green. So let's do the same over here. And let's just give a note 4.1.1.1 and 4.1.1.2. Okay. Okay. Now for SE0/3/1, we are going to give it 5.1.1.1. Let's go ahead and copy that. Let's do no shut. And then do it over here as well. This is SE0/3/0. So go ahead over here and give it 5.1.1.2 and do no shut. And see, it's connected. So let's also just put that note over here. And over here as well. You don't need to put these notes. That's just so that you can get a clear idea, because usually you don't have this number of devices. You have a really larger number of devices. So it helps if you've written down these labels. It helps you remember. And let's do the same for this side. So SE0/3/1. Let's give that 6.1.1.1 and go ahead and copy that. Shut. And then do the same for this side. SE0/3/1, 6.1.1.2, and no shut. And the interface state has changed to up. Let's go ahead and give that a label as well. And now we can see that if we wanted to send a message from this router to its laptop, it would say failed right now, but if you double click, it says successful. It does that sometimes. And then from this router to its laptop, it also says successful. Let's double click that. And then from this router to its laptop. Okay, let's delete the scenarios that we have free slots over here. And now let me show you a a message from this router to this router. And let's just do that for all the routers. And there you go. However, right now, although we've just done, we've made a basic network topology and we've assigned the IPs and done the configurations. However, right now you can't send a message from this router to another network's laptop. That's going to be a topic for our next video. We're going to do routing in our next video, hopefully. So I hope you learned something. And if you have any questions, you can put them forward in the comment section, or if you have any other requests for any videos. Thank you. Hope you learned something.